People are so mean online. And being seen is part of the too muchness, that the fear is tied back to not being accepted for who you are. At the end of the day, we are human beings. We are social beings. We want to be accepted for who we are. We want to be loved. We don't want to be controversial. So apparently, I'm too much. And I don't know how to feel about that. Too assertive, too emotional, too extra. How many of you have heard of that? Have someone has come and told you that you are too much? And I don't know how to feel about that. Welcome to OMG, another podcast. It's episode 2. I've survived. And today I'm talking about being too much. Um, and this topic came to me and I was thinking about it, and obviously I decided I have to share this with you. Is I was having a conflict with someone very close to me, and I was talking about it, or rather ranting about it to my therapist. And was asking, or should I say this, should I say that? Then I realized something. Wait a minute, it's almost as if I was looking for permission to react or act a certain way, or disclose my displeasure, about how I was feeling. And something came to mind, that's self repression. And self repression is actually dimming your light. Okay, let's start it from the beginning. So, from as young as I remember, just thinking back from, I was young, I was very bubbly, I was very assertive, I was out there. And I got told I'm too much. I talk a lot. That's why I have a podcast, maybe just to channel that energy somewhere. I am assertive. I do not, take something lying down. I do advocate for myself, which, by the way, all these things are positive traits to me. But then along the line, somewhere, I just realized that, people are telling me that, oh, you're too much, or, maybe just measure what you say. And so when I was talking to my therapist about the conflict that I was having with my loved one, I realized it's as if I was looking for permission to feel a certain way about the wrong that had happened to me. And I was like, where did this come from? It kind of like sneaked up on me, because if you ask me, I was very like, I'm always blunt and honest, obviously being careful not to necessarily hurt someone's feelings. So I wondered, where did this come from? Then I remembered, wait, remember I told you, I think in the first episode, my career in PR and communications. You have to, not necessarily pretense, but you have to like be dressed up in a certain way. You have to speak a certain manner. You also have to present, your client or the kind of brand that you're representing in a certain way. So slowly by slowly, I didn't notice that, but I started probably editing myself and my reactions, my thought processes around things. And all of a sudden, here I was sitting with my therapist asking for permission to react. And I was just like, absolutely not. That is not the way. I'm not saying that be irresponsible. I'm not saying don't treat people with kindness. I'm not saying don't hold people, gently, especially if you have been wronged or you're wronged. But at what cost? At what cost? At what cost? And I think that's what kept on going through my mind. At what cost? Because you find yourself losing your personality and your spark. And from as young as we can remember, we have been told, like, don't be too loud. Also kind of blame our education system, especially because, with the kinds of teachers that we had, and, don't make noise in the classroom, behave a certain way, walk in a straight line. There's discipline, but then also, especially those kids who are mostly creatively inclined, or would like to express themselves in a certain way, were punished. And I got into trouble a lot from either what I said, what I did, and things like that. And also, especially when it came to my career. And I just wondered, like, what do you do with that information when someone tells you you're too much? For me, that speaks to like code of like, you can't handle authenticity, you can't handle maybe honesty, you can't handle someone as raw as they come. So I think for me, especially with this past experience of self repression, it just came back to my mind. It made me realize that no, what is being put together? What is being proper? When do we let people be themselves? And when do we let people just be their creative minds, their wild selves, their things that they say, and it's like, oh, we're clutching our pearls. Especially right now with the cancel culture all around on social media, even with our friends, we're just canceling people. What happened to also just positive discourse, where you don't necessarily agree with someone, but then you can participate in healthy, for example, disagreements or just a debate as well. And so that was what has been ringing in my mind. And I got so sad. I won't lie to you about that. I got sad. I wondered how many other places within my life have I now been repressing, or rather have been performing to show up as. And one thing I've realized, that your body remembers. If you're uncomfortable, if you're not feeling safe, if you are probably dressing yourself up to make yourself look good, your chest gets tight, your body language is not comfortable, you're not feeling safe. So that's what I ask. At what cost? Truly, at what cost are you going to let, for example, society tell you that you're too much? And I've realized, especially from my experience, because I am a woman and I am a young woman, I'm in my early 30s, this is mostly told to girls. Girls shouldn't be shouting. Girls should not be in the mud like that. Girls should not be playing rough like that. And subconsciously, whether we realize it or not, like, you're stripping away someone's magic. And I actually believed that absolutely no, that was never going to be me. No one is going to tell me nothing. You can take away who I am. I am assertive and I'm all these things. But that interaction with my therapist, and the conflict that we're having, it wasn't even like that deep, I think, but I was so ready to position myself in a way that I I was measuring myself, basically. And instead of just going to the person and saying that, you hurt me, this is the way that you hurt me, or even like crying or having an outburst about it, when did that become a wrong thing? When did it become a wrong thing to just, have raw emotions? And especially on social media, that has really made us like have this picture perfect lives, like, oh, even laughing, ha ha ha. In fact, I remember about, the British guy on TikTok. I don't know if you guys have seen him, the one who is teaching people how to to etiquette, on how to eat. And then, like, for example, if it's a banana, and how you're supposed to eat a banana at a high, function event, and things like that. I'm not mad at that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, but like, what happened to just being authentic and having real emotions? That's my question. And I'm looking forward to a time where we can just be free, that we can be ourselves without having to think too much about, oh, I cried, now I'm showing weakness. And then also, emotions now are, what I've realized from my experience is that emotions are seen as a sign of weakness. We're just talking about that with Terry and Gift, who are behind the cameras, and how emotions are seen as a sign of weakness now, or like labeling someone emotional is a weakness, almost like you're shaming them, especially as a woman. And I will always speak on women because that is my personal experience. So, if you show anger, you're labeled, oh, that's an angry woman, especially the angry black woman narrative, that has been going on for a couple of decades now. Or if you cry, oh, that one is just a crybaby, they're always crying. What happened to just embracing emotions? Because aren't we human? Isn't that what makes us different from the other species? That makes us different from, I don't know, even an innate object? The fact that we have emotions, the fact that we can express ourselves and be raw, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that vulnerable? In fact, isn't there strength in that kind of vulnerability, that you can be emotional, and it's not a bad thing, but we are so shamed about it. Someone crying, probably online or even just sharing their story and they're ashamed for it. And I don't subscribe to that. And so, for example, even with starting the podcast, it was my way of reclaiming that power. And I remember in the first episode, I said that I was so afraid of being perceived. I still am, because someone will be like, what t-shirt are you wearing? Or like, oh, I disagree with whatever you're saying. And people are so mean online. And being seen is part of the too muchness, that the fear is tied back to not being accepted for who you are. At the end of the day, we are human beings. We are social beings. We want to be accepted for who we are. We want to be loved. We don't want to be controversial. Well, there are other people who do live for controversy, but I'm saying a lot of people, or a lot of us, we just want to be loved and accepted by our communities for who we are without having to edit ourselves. So now you find someone is having to edit themselves, to shrink themselves, to be able to fit within a certain narrative. And this is also a reminder to me to not be that, to take some small steps on how you can reclaim your voice, on how you can be authentic. And authentic means honest, and authentic means what's true to you, that it may not be the popular opinion. But are you happy with that? Do you have convictions about that? And this is not to say now that you behave badly and you're not open to other information or criticism and things like that, but you can own your opinion without the fear of being wrong. I feel like that's what we're missing. So I don't know what area of your life like you're self-repressing, but for me this is just a timely reminder as well. And I want to keep on doing more things like that. So some of the things that, for example, like I mentioned, this came up when I was with my therapist, is the podcast obviously is a good channel and an avenue for me to be able to do that and reclaim my power. Another thing you can do is journal. I believe just writing your raw thoughts as they come, and just jotting it down on paper, reading it back to yourself, and be like, yeah, actually that's truly how I feel, and owning it. Even in a small reflective manner today, you tell your friend, like, actually, when they ask you, do you want to go out, and you really want to say no, and then you're like, oh, I'm sick, and then my dog died, and can we please stop? All of us, even me, myself included, this is a reminder to myself, let's not lie. Let's reclaim honesty. Let's be who we really are. Let's be honest and authentic in what we truly mean. And I just feel like, especially because we live with ourselves in our bodies, we know when we're lying to ourselves. And that's why it said a lot of the times, like, your mind can be your worst prison. So be happy with yourself, that people know you and they see that you're authentic, that the person you are representing internally is also the person you are expressively, is that the word? Expressing yourself to be, from an external standpoint. So, and yeah, like, and some of those things, and so some of those incidences that really have made me sad, in terms of when I was made to feel like I should not be too much, even in my dating experiences. One day maybe I'll share about those, and having to walk on eggshells because you want to express a certain thing, and now you're being seen as like, here we go again. She wants to talk about this and that. Let me actually just talk about that a bit. When did conflict become a bad thing? No, like truly. Because from my understanding, conflict is a bad thing if it's handled in a negative manner. But conflict can be beautiful because it shows people what you're okay with. It showcases your boundaries. And conflict is a way for, especially if you deal with it in a healthy manner, for someone to be able to stay in your life, because you're telling them, okay, for me, when you did ABCD, that hurt my feelings. When you do BDC, I actually appreciate that more. Isn't that a way to keep people in our lives? Why do we demonize emotions in general? Why do we demonize big feelings in general? And I'm not okay with that. And I hope that you can remember that. Like, what do you love about yourself that you also feel is too much? What have you been repressing? What is this that you have been so afraid to be perceived over? And for me, that's my challenge to myself. And I thought I would also share with you the same thing. Like I was saying, some of the things and tips I was given by my therapist on how to go about it. Actually, let me read some of them for you. I think I have them here. Yeah. Okay, so how do you reclaim your voice? Number one is express yourself through, like what I think I'd mentioned before, journaling, writing your raw thoughts as they are, taking long walks, sauntering, just being with yourself. Being honest is like, doing a check-in. We're always checking in with our friends, our loved ones. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How about you do that with yourself? So that's pretty cool. I like long walks. I'm a walker, and rants in the mirror. I never found myself doing that. I find that funny because I'll start checking myself out. Like, is my face looking okay? Where is this pimple from? But I know that it does help to do rants in the mirror, or podcasting. Can also start a podcast like me. And then speaking your truth, that is telling the truth in small ways daily. Even saying things like, I don't like that, instead of, being a people pleaser. Because if you repress yourself, actually, it tends to go into people pleasing tendencies, where now you're doing things for the audience of other people and you want them to appreciate or accept you in a certain way, even if you don't believe that. The third one is body release practices. I have done some of this. I feel like it centers you, inhaling deeply. I think they call it lion's breath, where you inhale deeply, then you exhale through your mouth, and you do this around 3 times. So for me, what I found is, even when I've just done that, I feel like it calms me, calms my nervous system. It brings me back to myself. And I hope that will help you out as well. Another one is the cat and cow stretches, the ones that you kind of like curve your back. Humming in the shower or the car. So listen, vibration heals. Even that singing in the car, if you're in the car, in your room, doing a little jig, that always helps. And then lying on your belly, and your forehead is also resting on the ground, and breathing deeply. Again, this is just some ways in which you can bring yourself back. So, and these things have helped me, especially obviously journaling, reclaiming my voice by starting the podcast, and that's why I'm here. And I hope that they can do that for you too. And so I'm in my too much era, if you can call it that. Not in a negative way, but just reclaiming who I am and saying, yes, I do have different passions. I have different interests. I am assertive. I have an opinion about this, without having that constant fear of, oh my gosh, I'm going to be cancelled tomorrow, or what is that going to look like. And this is just also just a call for you to remember that as well for yourself, that it doesn't have to be perfect, that it doesn't have to be dressed up. You don't have to be dressed up. If you want to start something, just start it. First, make it exist, then make it perfect, is what I'd say. Um, and I just want to remind another story that comes to my mind is, especially at work, if you're a corporate baddie, you know that you have to really edit yourself a lot. And I remember there's this one time at work, I had an idea and was very, passionate about it. I was young. I was also, maybe that also helps. I was in the beginning of my career and I was just starting out. And I just realized that the way it was shut down, I started saying less from that point forward. I started not showing up as myself. So if you'd ask me, oh, what do you think about this idea? At that time, I think I was doing advertising, yes. And I started showing up less and less and less. So what I've realized about self-repression, basically in general and as a whole, is that it really takes away from who we are. It takes away your voice. It takes away from the joy of even your expression. It dims your creative light. And creativity doesn't have to be like you're a painter or anything like that, but how do you show up in the world in an authentic, creative, fun side? Maybe someone criticized your t-shirt and was like, yeah, that's too graphic. or your sense of dressing, or your hair, you like wearing your hair up or down in a certain way and someone criticized that. And that's what I was saying. You have to be very careful because those things can lead into what's the word? People pleasing tendencies. And I think I just felt like this was so timely and as a reminder, and I'm just reminding myself as well as we're going to now we're in episode 2 of the pod, even for myself to not repress myself. So, today I want to ask you, what have you been repressing in yourself? Please share a DM with me, send over a voice note, whatever it is. And I just want to ask you this week alone, do something that frees you. Maybe you don't even like that meal and you're always like, yeah, I like the meal. Just say, no, actually, I don't like that meal. Start with something small and go back into yourself. And I don't know, like there's a joy, there's a certain glow when you do accept yourself for who you truly, 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 truly are and what you stand for. So this week we are in our two, no, actually not this week. From now henceforth, we are in our too much era. We are unapologetic about who we are. We're not self-repressing. We are loving ourselves as we are. And I'm so grateful for you being here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please don't forget to send me a DM, a voice note, anything that you want to share, also your experiences. If you have also any other tips on how you can reclaim your voice, some instances that you want to share with me, that would be amazing. Please follow me on all social media platforms on AMG, another podcast. Please like, subscribe, share this as well with your friends and loved ones. Would love to hear from you. Until next time, be authentic, be yourselves.